Post live stream onto your wall as well to keep the movement going. Invite your friends. That will help us spread the word and spread the lesson. We are continuing our lesson called Are We Doing Our Job? If you have a cell phone or a Bible, I would totally use your help in looking up several scriptures. We looked at the scriptures before. We're going to revisit them as well. So let me know who has Bibles and app Bibles so we can kind of be a part of this conversation. If you're online, thank you. Everett's online. Welcome, Everett. If you're online also and you want to help us answer questions, I'll try and read your questions and teach at the same time. So please feel free to interact and answer questions. I'll do my best to kind of follow the comments here below. One of the things what we're talking about is, are we doing our job? And one of the questions we're asking is, what is our job? Like, what is our job? So we kind of want to keep that in mind. One of the things that we want to be looking up, we're going to look up again, 1 John 4:1. So if someone can say 1 John 4:1, they have it. That'll be very useful. And if someone else can I'll get my timer. I got time to make sure I don't go over 30 minutes. All right, so I just want to make sure we're plugged in. What is our job? If you're a young child or a young adult or even an adult sometimes, like, it's hard to know what your job is here on the planet. What are we here to do? Why are we here? This is a kind of intense questions, but as Christians, we all have a kind of a basic protocol. So we're going to talk about that protocol as well. Another question I'm going to ask is, who stops you from doing your job? And people online can answer this as well. Who stops you from doing your job? And this is really important because the question is like, what do you mean by who stops you? But it's really important to think about this idea is, who stops you? Because sometimes the devil will send people to distract you or to pull you down or slow you down from doing your job. Even like you think about Job, his wife even said, just curse God. It's not a sustainable spiritual practice. You've lost everything. And he said, you talk like a foolish woman, right? That's the famous words of Job. And so for me, it's really significant because it's so easy for us to kind of forget that people can disrupt you from doing your life's work. And when you're doing your life's work, the next question I have is, who are you doing it for? Who are you doing it for? It's a big question. Erica Carter, welcome, Erica Carter. Thank you for being a part of the online conversation. And I want to give you guys a prompt online too, is who stops you from doing your job? And we're talking about your spiritual work, the reason why you're here on the earth. If you have the answer to that, what are some of the barriers that stop you from doing that? So I'm going to go back to my first question is, who stops you? Who stops you? Open it up to the room here. Who stops you from doing your job? Yes, Keziah.
Yourself.
Ooh, really important. Keziah says self. We're getting deep quickly. So yourself could stop you? Is there anyone else that can stop you from doing your job here on the earth? The most important job you'll have. Yes.
Trauma.
Ooh, so trauma is not necessarily a person, but trauma can be given by a person. We're going to talk about trauma. This word's used a lot. Trauma. Who else could stop you from doing your job on the planet? JR.
The devil.
The devil. Let's get the devil in here. It's important. Self, devil, anyone else? Yes, Portia, and then Keziah, and then Amelia.
Someone who you interact with daily who has a negative mindset.
Negative people you deal with daily. Okay? Keziah? Anyone can stop you. If you let them, anyone can. Amelia? God. Well, God might not stop you, but we can talk about God's role in the process. Everett says sometimes it can be the person or people you love the most. Everett says the people you love the most. This is important. Beth has joined us. Thank you, Beth Dunn, for joining us in this conversation. So the question we're asking online and also in person is, who can stop you from doing your life work? Who can stop you from doing your life's work? Yes, Uncle Matt?
Your spouse.
Oh, we have spouses. So who your spouse is, your companion? Spouse. That's a possibility as well. Who else can stop you? There's a good list here. I mean, one more person or type of person.
Your mentor.
Your what?
Your mentor.
Your mentor. Ooh, you can get a sour mentor that's scared because you're going outside of what they're comfortable with. Your mentor. And someone said work. Wyatt Cambridge said work. I'm assuming you're saying your job. You can clarify that, Wyatt. I'm assuming you're saying like the job you work every day can stop you from doing your spiritual work. Hopefully, because some of that chops up, so hopefully you understand that. So verify that for me, Wyatt. If you mean the job you work at home or the job you go to work to every day can stop you from doing your spiritual work. Oh, hey, cousin. Yes, Erica said hey. One thing, and Erica Carter, it's so good to see you on here on Facebook Live. So one of the things that your spouse, your mentor, someone that's over you giving you advice, your loved one or your spouse, Keziah says anyone, Keziah says yourself, we have the devil, we have negative people we deal with every day, and we have trauma. Trauma is given. I mean the job, yes. Okay, I was right. Why it's the job. So this is so true. You can get a job that is toxic, and it could drain you to the point that you can't do God's work. So we get up every morning, we go to the job, we go to work for someone else to get our minimum wage or a little bit above minimum wage or whatever the money is, and then God says, I want you to go out and do some more work for me. And he said, I'm too tired. I just spent all of my time doing my physical work. Josh.
So my question is, how do you know when you found that job?
Ooh. How do you know you found God's job? Or you mean?
Where it's like not that like toxic.
Oh, how do you know when you find a job that you can still do God's work? Well, it's not just about doing the job that God works. It's also having a mindset to say, I'm going to make sure I don't use too much of my energy doing that job, that I preserve something for God. I preserve my good self for my job. Grown kids can do it. Grown kids can do it too. Yeah, I think children that are getting older can definitely interrupt your spiritual practice, your life's work, right? Now, it's kind of hard because as parents, we want to raise our kids. That's really important. Yes, she said it can just drain you. So the idea is that raising children can stop you from doing God's work. You would think that God's work is raise children. Yes, God wants you to raise your children, but God also has more work for you to do as well, right? And sometimes God says your job is to raise children for that moment, but you want to make sure if God says I want you to raise children and that you have some energy for the and, right? That's really important. Thank you, Erica. So children, and children aren't bad. We love children here in Baldwin Mesa, but this can hurt you. Portia.
Some people might disagree, but I would say a church member.
Ooh, a church member definitely can. A church member, and I'll say a church can. If you go to a church that the leadership and the community is not prepared for your good work, they can stop you and hold you back. I know it's a hard thought to think about, but your church can hold you back from your good work. I know it's kind of hard to think sometimes, but when you think about what your spiritual job is, when you die, now I won't get ahead of myself, but you got to understand that when you die, your job says hire someone else to replace you. When you die in your spiritual practice, God says your work here on earth is done. So that means there's no one else to replace you and do what your specific job was. Your job is unique to only you. And if you don't get it done, then your job will not get done. God will have someone fulfill in another way that same task, but it's a unique thing that only we can do that God has given us. Everyone has an individual job that they can do. Now, there's no such thing as a Christian without a job, right? There's no such thing as that. God has a job for every single Christian. Every single one that says, God is my Savior, I want to be in this space, that there's a job for them. So who can stop you? I'm going to start at the top of this thing as trauma. I wrote the top. is that sometimes you might have a situation at home or at school where you get traumatized, and you get traumatized to the point you get hurt, and trauma sets in is when hurt sets into your nervous and emotional system, and it say, I hurt so bad, I'm not going to try that anymore. So maybe hypothetically, you got trauma around driving. You got a car accident or something, you don't drive anymore, as an example. And God says, I want you to drive to a location and do a specific work for me. He said, I can't drive because I'm scared. I don't have faith that you can protect me. I can't get in the car and go anywhere. I can't do it. Now that trauma is interrupting your ability to do God's will. I'm using that as an example, but these are many, many examples that can happen through trauma. Now, I think one of the most important ones on this entire list is self. That's a person. Yourself is a person. You can stop yourself from doing your work, your purpose here on the planet. So for me, I think it's really critical that when you think about your work, make sure you look in the mirror and go, am I stopping myself? Am I only asking God for just a little bit like I'm asking God for a lot? Am I getting in my own self's way? Can we go look up Luke 10 and 27? Luke 10 and 27. Yourself. Imagine, I don't know how many times I've seen athletes when I was in high school that were the best athletes on the team, but they got in their own self's way by not training hard as they should, by not showing up, by not working. I figure in our spiritual space, it's very much the same. Portia, go ahead and read Luke 10 and 27.
Luke 10 and 27. And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself.
All right, let's pause right there. We read this last Wednesday, we read this last Sunday. I'm going to read it probably next Wednesday. It's so important to think about that we have to love God with all of our heart. And oftentimes, the first thing gets in our way when we want to love God with all of our heart, when the first thing gets in our way is ourself. Oftentimes, we want to share, it was Johnny that got in my way. It was the government holding me down. And guess who's holding us down the most? Ourselves. If we can take control of ourselves, we're in a good position to conquer and give God all. Yes, Joshua.
It might be like a little off course, but how do you give your 100%?
Ooh, how do you give 100%? It's an author, Seth Godin, went to speak at a TEDx conversation. He said, everybody in the classroom, or it's a bunch of teenagers, he said, everyone here raise your hand if you've worked the hardest. And everyone raises their hand. It's all right. Raise your hand as high as you can. And everyone raises their hand up. He goes, now a little bit higher. And everyone goes, a little higher. And he used that example very beautifully because he said, I said raise your hand as high as you can. High as you can. And he said, go a little higher. And everyone goes, a little higher. If you raise it, first of all, as high as you possibly could, when you say a little higher, you should stay exactly still. You couldn't go any higher, right? You raise it as high as you possibly could. And he said, that's psychologically what we do to ourselves. And Joshua, your topic or question is like, how do you know if you give it 100%? When God says move, your hands in the air, you don't move. You can't give anymore. You're done. You're empty. But if God says, I'll give your all, and you go, okay. He says, give more, and you go, you didn't give your all because you had something left. That's how you know you gave it all. And you might say, well, how does that translate to me actually doing something, right? I'm going to church. I'm in Wednesday. I get there 30 minutes late. How does that translate? Well, the question you have to ask your heart, not anyone else, but the question you have to ask your heart is, when I give, could I have gotten it any earlier? Could I have planned any better? And if you say, yeah, I could have a little higher, guess what? You have something still to give. Now, when God says give your all, we're not talking about actual measurements like, and we calculated you can give you more. What he's talking about is your heart and your will. Your heart and your will is a critical part. And so I think it's a really good question because I think that sometimes we think, I didn't give my all because I was in second place. You can be in last place. Remember I talked about last Wednesday when I was sitting there watching the person run a mile? And I thought, that guy's slow. He came in last place. He only ran a mile in like 5 minutes, 30 seconds, right? He got smoked, right? And I go to run the mile. I'm running the mile. I'm like 8 minutes. I'm like, this is hard, right? This guy is fast. Because my perspective and context was slightly off. So when it comes to dealing with your 100% and knowing when you're giving 100%, it's a heart check. It's not amongst everyone else. It's a heart check of, did you give your all in you and God? And you honestly can say, yes, I gave my all. Because what I went through today happened. Yes, Uncle, raise your hand. Yes, that's a very good question. What does smoke mean? Smoke means that someone ran faster than you. They left you behind. They're faster. That's probably the best that I can give right now. Can you read the scripture again, Luke 10 and 27?
Luke 10 and 27. And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself.
That's a tough one. Negative people that we see daily. So I think Portia said that. Negative people we see daily. When you have someone you see negative people, have you ever been in in a shopping center or in a mall somewhere and somebody's having a good time and maybe someone in front of you has like 30 receipts or 30 coupons and start getting them out and tearing them and paying each device with it. It takes like 20 minutes to buy like 20 things. And you're doing all right. You have a good day, right? You're like, okay, I'm good, a good day. And all of a sudden, you find the person behind you is like, oh my goodness, can they hurry up? All of a sudden, that good day starts getting stressful because of the negative energy around you. And so what's so important is that when we're dealing with our spiritual practice, you could be in a spiritual line where things are going great, and then you have a negative person at work, maybe a boss or a coworker or someone that you see on a regular basis negative. That can have a huge impact. But it says here that we love God with all of our heart. If we're loving God with all of our heart, there's no space for that negative person to take space in our heart and mind. We'll go to the internet here. Wyatt Cambridge says, God needs your whole heart, harder than I ever thought. That's amen to that one. God needs your whole heart ever than before. And that's so true, especially nowadays, because we always say, back in my day it was nicer and now it's worse. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worse per se, but I would say that we have now digitized and spread out ourselves in a way that God wants to use us with the technologies around us to really have a true impact, because we have the ability today to wipe the earth or make the earth so toxic that it's very difficult for human beings to live. We have enough weapons and toxicity to literally destroy the earth as we know it. Not destroy the earth, but destroy it so it's not easy for humans to 6 billion people to populate it. Maybe 100,000. We could limit it down to almost nothing. That's how much work we've put into weaponry and defense and wasted a lot of our resources for destruction. This is our psychology. So God needs a people that are able to engage in a government and a culture that has technology to hurt lots of people very quickly. So it's important for us not to be slothful. You got to understand, in the Bible days, there was no such thing as atomic warheads, right? When slavery happened, which is a horrific part of history, there was no such thing as dropping weapons that can destroy cities in seconds. But now this is our reality. Not to be afraid of it, but we have to be very in the middle, like Wyatt said here. God needs us more now than ever. So it's an urgent responsibility. Desire says anyone. Yes, go ahead, Portia.
I was just going to say one thing that stood out to me about the scripture was after it says, to love God with all your heart, strength, and mind, and then it says, as love your neighbor as thyself.
Yeah.
And one thing I was thinking about is we talked about how if you let yourself get in the way and you're not giving your all to God, you're not just hurting yourself, but you're hurting those around you.
Yes.
Because if they're looking to you to see God's light, to
Yes.
see what God has done for you, but you're not tapped into God, how can they reach God?
Yes. You're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting others. It's not a selfish experience here. And I think this is important. I'm going to move ahead to a question because of time. We have about 10 minutes left, believe it or not. I'm going to get back to our list in a minute, but move to a question before I come back to this list. And that is, if we are doing our job, what does our job look like when we pass away and die? So we're doing our job correctly, and then God calls us home, we go to heaven. Our work that's here on earth, what does that look like? Use an example. We're Christians because we are Christ-like. So Jesus was killed. They killed him, right? They hung him on the cross. We remember the story. They killed him. And Jesus was doing a work. What was Jesus' work here on earth? Saving our souls. What else was he doing? He was saving our souls. That's the thing primary. What was Jesus doing while he was here? You know, I'm about my Father's business. Remember this conversation he had? I'm about my Father's business. What was his Father's business?
To teach us.
To teach us, yes, definitely teach. To love us, teach love. Combine those two together, teach love, right? We'll say to save mankind, right? To save mankind through the Christian philosophy of loving thy neighbors and this thinking, right? Yes, teaching. Why it says teaching, yes. And then when Jesus got crucified, did his work just stop? Did it just, oh man, it was so great, and then Jesus died? Well, that was over. What happened to Jesus' work when he died? It kept going, kept growing. 2,000 years later, Jesus has been dead or more, and guess what? Is his work dead? No. That's our example. So if we're doing our job, I always said this, I said this in high school, I was a little advanced when I said this, I don't think I understood exactly what I was saying when I said it. But I said, I'm a FFA president in high school, and I said, if I was a good president, the year after I leave, the chapter should be better off than it was the year when I was president because I set it up so well. I did a good job of building a team of people. People say, wow, this church was so great. And then that pastor, he left and they just fell apart. The family was so close, and then the grandma passed away and the family just fell apart. That family was so strong, and then the husband passes away and the whole family just falls apart. Or we're doing our work and we die and our work spreads and grows without us even being there. How does that happen? You're no longer even breathing and your work is growing. If you're doing your job correctly, I want to use one more example. There was a gentleman we can make familiar with named Martin Luther King. He had a specific job he was trying to do, and they shot him. They killed him. Did that end the work? Did the work just stop? Did Martin Luther King's work just end?
No.
Right? It kept going. It went beyond his organic body. Bullets and bombs can't stop your spiritual practice. You may get fired from your job, or your job may not need you anymore for your money job, but you can't be fired if you're willfully doing God's work. They can kill you, and your work can get bigger. Remember it says, Paul, I believe, said, to die is to what? It's to gain. I know it seems kind of weird, but to die is to gain. So if to die is to gain, that also means that your good work here is not lost. We have you get ready to die, and all of a sudden you get like a little, what do you call it? It's like a will, right? You get a will and say, my car goes to whoever else, my goods goes to whoever else. There's we call a second will. We'll use an analogy if you can follow me on this. A second will is a spiritual will. And I remember I harassed my mother, bless her, she was patient with me. I just told my mom, Mommy, we don't have much stuff. Our house is boring. You hear me? I don't know Nintendo, no games, right? And she would sit back, she would fun. She's like, you're blessed. You are blessed with things you don't even understand. Mom, you just saying that because you're trying to win an argument or whatever. Give me Nintendo. And just for those online, I'm not anti-Nintendo. Nintendo is fantastic, I'm sure. But I kept acting like my life was so horrible that they gave me nothing. And, of course, I got older, and I realized that they were giving me a second will. There was a second will that they were writing for us, and they're still writing, and that we're all writing. You're writing a second will, and that second will is a spiritual job that you're doing. The example of you doing your spiritual job is an example of your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. Grandpa Chandler, right? I always reference him because I never met him, except through my mother, right? Grandpa Chandler wrote a will, right? And it's continuing today. The reason I'm standing here today is because part of Grandpa Chandler's will, and I'm convinced that Grandpa Chandler prayed for me, in essence. I am convinced he thought about me in some way. He didn't know my name, but he thought about me, right? Can we think about our spiritual will, how it's going to impact 100 years from today? Can we think about that? What is our spiritual job 100 years from today? I just met James not too long ago. He wasn't here 10 years ago. But did we think about James 10 years ago? Did we think about Amelia 10 years ago? Before we know it, right? She'll be a grown person. And I'll ask ourselves tonight on Wednesday night, and those online ask yourself the same question. Ask ourselves, if we're doing our spiritual job, and we're giving it with all of our heart, all of our might, it's going to affect generations for hundreds of years. When our cars and our wheels and our houses are burned down, when the high deserts as populated as Los Angeles, we have skyscrapers in Victorville. We're all laughing. I saw pictures of Victorville in the 1950s. I'm like, whoa. It's like skyscrapers now in comparison to Victorville in 1950. When all of our organic bios are done and we're doing our work, our life work will still matter. And I oftentimes go, and Portia goes to Cal State, and she says, pick me up at this building called Jack Brown Hall, right? I believe he's one of the founders of Stater Brothers. But I think 90% of people going to building don't know what's Jack Brown's Hall. It's called Jack Brown's Hall. It's a person's name. He's trying to kind of immortalize himself on a building, right? It's kind of a thing that you do when you have resources. You say, this is Aaron Johnson Hall. And 90% of people don't know Aaron Johnson. But there's a second building we can technically, emotionally build that can shelter generations after. That's our spiritual work. We can hand it down and hand it down and hand it down. And so for us, I feel like if we're doing our job, I want us to kind of settle into the stake. What's at stake here? How we refine it is going to be passed down. And that's our comfort, right? It's our comfort. We don't want to breathe in our last breath of going, is my spiritual will in order? I'm going to heaven. I had that in order, but did I give my all in my work? Or did I hold back a little bit for another day? Did I hold back a little bit for another Netflix episode, right? Did I hold back a little bit for that good movie to watch in the dollar theater, I love dollar theater. None of things are bad, but did I do that instead of doing God's work? I'm not bashing the dollar theater or bashing these places, but I'm saying that sometimes it don't take much to distract us from saving someone's life. It don't take much. Like, I was hungry. I was tired. I didn't know this was the last time I was going to talk to him. I didn't know. I thought I had a couple more days. That's why God says give your all. He didn't say give your all on Wednesday and Sunday, right? He said give your all the time, right? That's what he says. I mean, that's what he alludes to. He didn't say it exactly that way, but that's what he alludes to. And that's why I think it's important for us to understand that are we doing our job is not a check like, are you doing your job? It's more of the idea of saying, I love my great-great-great-grandchildren so much that when they're standing up at 34 years old in Baltimore, I thought about them in 1955, 1965. I thought about them. And I think we have the privilege, we can breathe, and we're alive, to consider everyone that comes with our sphere. And if you don't have any children, you impact some other people. You might impact your neighbor who has 20 kids. You never know how your work is going to go. You might say, I don't have any kids. I've never had. That's fine. What about the person you meet when you go to work and you impact them in a positive way and they have 10 kids? What about the church you go to? Are the kids there too? We have a constant impact on the people around us and our spiritual, if we're doing our spiritual job. And I remember my father reminded me, and my mom said this too. Bryce is on, I believe. He was on. Let me see.
Okay, he just said making sure.
Yeah, Bryce is on.
Go right ahead.
Is that I feel like
He said your father's thing.
he said, if you take a cup of water and sit it up here for the preacher, that God blesses you for even giving a cup of water. And so what comes down to is that your job might not be a preacher, it might not be a teacher, it might not be a Sunday school teacher. Your job might be a good janitor. You might just clean up the church. And when you clean the church up, that's 28 minutes, got 2 minutes left. When you clean up the church, no one might even know you did it. You might do it for 30 years. And you do it thoroughly. You don't leave a crumb on the ground. And you think, how can that impact somebody 100 years from today? No one even saw me do it. Right? But what's so beautiful about your spiritual practice, even if it is cleaning the janitorial cleaning of the church, is that A, God sees it, and God will bless everyone around you, and everything you clean, everything you touch in a way that no one else will be touched because you are doing it to the best of all of your heart for God's name. Secondly, is that if you're diligent in your job, it bleeds into other parts of your life. It absorbs in other parts of your life. So if you're diligent in God's work, you're also on time to church. You're also early to church. You're also doing missionary work. You're also to expand out and do a lot of other good work because you're already so focused on the job that no one actually sees. That no one's actually saying, oh, he's the greatest janitor. Maybe one person knows it. But you will be rewarded for that job. You will get the impact that you designed. Yes, Portia.
You said this term, heart check, and I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, if you were to describe what that looks like on a spiritual level, what is a spiritual heart check?
Yeah, so heart check is just checking, right? So if you're like got in the car ready to leave and you're like, do I have my wallet? And you check your wallet. Oh, God, I'm good. I can go to the store. It's kind of the same way. When you go into the world and you're spiritual, you want to check and go, oh, do I have my spiritual wallet? Oh, I got it. Okay, and I have my spiritual devotion in here. I got all the things I need. I got my grace card in here. I got my love card, debit card in here. I ain't going in broke. I ain't got nothing left. I'm broke. I ain't got no grace left. I got everything I need when I go into the world, right? You follow me? You know, this, you go to the store and you reach in, you go, oh, I got a debit card. The line behind you, you have groceries. You're like, oh, no, right? It's embarrassing in the store, but in real life, if you ain't got grace and you got a cart full of problems in front of you, right? We're in trouble, right? So the idea is a heart check is that I got it still. Okay, I got it. That's what that is. It's that checking to make sure that you have all those things, that long suffering, that grace, and all the things that we need to go into the world and they go, oh, that's a Christian because he's got slapped 4 times. He turned the other cheek, symbolically and literally. So that's what we want to make sure we have. When Jesus was in the garden, praying before he was going to get crucified, he was doing a heart check symbolically. He was making sure he was ready to give up his life for the individual he loved so much, me and you. He was checking himself. He was bleeding. He was pouring it out. He was checking himself. If I remember, it was an individual close to the story that was ready to go into surgery, and they said, we don't know if you're going to make it out of surgery. What music do you want to listen to before you go under? That last audio you want to hear. And some of us don't have the privilege to have that kind of privilege of saying what you want to hear. But spiritually, it's the same idea of if when you are heart checking yourself, you're asking yourself that I don't know if today's my last day. I don't know if this is my last week. I don't know if this is my last year. But the last thing I want to hear is all the good spiritual work I've been doing. I don't want to be distracted by the devil's distraction. I want to have grace, patience, long-suffering, love, focus that brings it all together on my heart and mind. Whenever the last moment comes, I want to be ready. Right? And that's what that is, a heart check. It's kind of an evaluation of yourself. All right, we're at 30 minutes, so we're going to have to stop here. I want to give a good 2-minute extended place for anyone online that wanted to share anything that I didn't get to read. I'm going to kind of scroll through here. If you're online, you have a question or comment. I just want to make sure that you're heard. Oh, yeah, Bryce says yes, he's on. Thank you all that have been watching online. It's like almost good 10 people are watching right now. It's like Aunt Mildred. Let's see if we get anyone. Rebecca Trawick is on here. Thank you, Rebecca Trawick. Good to see you. Wyatt. Terry Nilsson. Good to see you on here. Bryce Johnson. Christina. Thank you, Christina. Is that Cheryl Bennett from, I think she's in Loyalton, I believe. Yeah, Loyalton part. Thank you, Cheryl Bennett, for being a part of this conversation. Is there any prayer requests, if anyone online that you want to share, things we can pray for you about as we go into the week, as we go into our Sunday service? Let's give you a moment. Any prayer requests, type them in the comments. If they're a personal prayer request and you don't want to share them on a public forum, just inbox me and we'll just make sure we'll keep it documented as a prayer request. Any prayer requests that you have online, you can share it now. I'll try and read it. Just give space for anybody online. We have almost more people online than we have paper. 20 people almost total here. Fantastic. Bryce says, my transition to my new job. Amen. So remember Bryce and his transition to his new job. Any other prayer requests? All right, that's all, everybody. Oh, we got another one. Bryce says, and traveling mercies when I'm coming to church. So he'll be driving back to church. So traveling mercies, he drives back the 90 miles back here. Wyatt says, the song I'm waiting to God I'm writing to God to finish. Yes, he's writing a song. Wyatt's writing a song. He's helping God help him to finish it, I believe. The song I'm writing to God to finish. And Camellia says Trenton's transition to the new home. So Trenton, yes, remember Trenton as he transitions to his new home. Anyone else have any other prayer requests? We want to honor the Lord and give to the Lord online. Just give a couple more minutes. People to type. Thank you all that are online for being a part of this conversation and prayer meeting and contributing to the conversation. Aunt Mildred says, pray for me, both physical and spiritual. Thank you, Aunt Mildred, for watching, being a part of this. And we'll be praying for you physically and mentally and spiritually. Thank you. Any other prayer requests? That was a mistake. Any other prayer requests? Bryce, can you leave the live stream on so we can hear some singing? Yeah, we can leave the live stream on so we get some singing. That's a totally good idea. Let's keep it going. So we'll leave the live stream on to get some singing and testimonies. Yeah, let's keep it going. That's a good idea, Bryce. This is the people's live stream. Any other prayer requests? One more second for it. Anyone else can be a part. All right. If there are no other ones online, we'll just keep it rolling. We're going to give space for testimonies and speak loud so people online can hear you and be a part of this conversation. I'm going to stop my recording here.